My beloved child, something urgent is stirring around you right now, and your spirit already feels it. The air around your home has shifted. Your heart knows something is being revealed, and heaven has chosen this exact moment to reach you. For the past few days, you've been sensing a strange pull, like someone is calling your name without speaking. And today, Archangel Michael himself is stepping forward because time is running out. 30 minutes in the spirit realm, that's all that's left before a major truth opens right in front of you. You may not realize this, but every time you scroll away from messages like this, you don't just skip a video, you skip a warning God tried sending to save your life. And heaven is whispering, "Child, this time please don't hurt me by turning away." Because what you're about to hear, what is about to unfold, is the exact confession someone has made about you behind your back. A confession so shocking that once you know it, your life, your boundaries, and your spirit will never be the same again. Listen carefully, because Archangel Michael is standing at the edge of your atmosphere right now. His sword is drawn, not in violence, but in truth, cutting through illusions, lies, and manipulations that have been clouding your path for months. He has been trying to reach you, but every time he moves closer, you get distracted. Your mind wanders, your emotions shift, or you scroll away. You don't realize it, but dark forces have been working overtime to keep you from hearing this exact message. Because the moment you hear what has been confessed, the moment you understand the truth hidden behind someone's smile, the chains they used to control you will snap instantly. And they know it. Heaven knows it. Your spirit knows it. That's why everything feels spiritually loud today. There is a person in your life, someone you trusted, someone you were kind to, who recently spoke something about you behind closed doors. Their words didn't fall into silence. They traveled. They echoed. And heaven heard them loud and clear. Their confession wasn't casual. Their confession wasn't accidental. The confession carried intention. Someone has been revealing their real thoughts about you, and the shocking part is this. It is the opposite of what they pretend when they stand in front of you. For months, they have smiled at you. For months, they have acted concerned. For months, they have acted supportive. But when they opened their mouth privately, the truth leaked out. They confessed jealousy. They confessed resentment. They confessed fear of your light and destiny. They confessed something so deep that heaven said, "Enough. Expose it now." Archangel Michael is telling you that the spiritual countdown is real. Your soul is in a moment of revelation, and what comes next will change relationships, trust, and direction for you. You may be wondering, why is God warning me now? Why is Michael speaking so urgently? Because for too long, you have been walking with people whose hearts were divided toward you. For too long, you have been giving loyalty to individuals who gave you deception. For too long, your spirit has felt confusion, heaviness, silence, and unexpected emotional fatigue. What you didn't know is that their confession exposed the root of everything. Heaven is saying, "Child, you didn't imagine the discomfort. You didn't imagine the distance. You didn't imagine the spiritual drain." Someone's true words shifted the atmosphere around you. God doesn't want you walking blind anymore. God doesn't want you loving blindly anymore. God doesn't want you trusting blindly anymore. You are being awakened, not punished. Archangel Michael has been stationed around you because an unveiling is happening. The truth will no longer stay hidden. And before this truth shows up physically, through a message, through a slip of the tongue, through a sudden confrontation, heaven wants your spirit prepared. Hear this with your whole heart. You will not be the same after knowing the confession that was made about you. It will open your eyes. It will separate the real from the fake. It will clear the fog from your path. It will restore your strength in a way you haven't felt in years. And right now, Michael is asking you to stay. Not because of the video, but because your destiny is entering a turning point. Before this moment passes, before this shift completes, do not allow distraction to pull you away. This is one of those rare moments when heaven intervenes directly. Hold on. You're just steps away from the moment where everything starts making sense. Before you breathe again, something powerful is coming next. Type "I open my spirit" in the comments if this is touching something deep inside you. Blessing code 144 is now active over your life. And pause for a moment, the next revelation will hit harder than you expect. Stay close, because what unfolds next will shake the truth loose. Beloved soul of light, something stronger is moving toward you right now, and the moment you stepped into this message, the spiritual atmosphere around you began to shift. Not later, not gradually, instantly. There's the first sign that heaven has been waiting for you to finally sit still long enough to hear what you were never meant to miss. You may think you stumbled here by accident, but Archangel Michael says it clearly. There are no accidents in moments like this. There is divine interruption. When heaven breaks into your timeline like this, it is because a spiritual alarm has gone off around your name. For a long time, God has been trying to reach you with gentle whispers. But today is different. Today the whisper became a call, and the call became a warning, and the warning has now become an urgent unveiling. Something someone said about you has created a spiritual tremor, and that tremor has reached all the way into the courts of heaven. That is why Archangel Michael is stepping forward with the same authority he used when he fought for Daniel, when he defended Joshua, when he stood guard over destiny itself. Your name is in the center of a spiritual situation you didn't even know existed. But ignorance does not erase impact. Heaven saw what was said. Heaven heard what was confessed. And heaven is responding. You may think you have time, but spiritually, the window is shrinking. When God says 30 minutes left, it does not mean minutes on a clock. It represents a spiritual countdown, a divine timer that marks the moment before your revelation fully arrives. The truth is already cracking through the surface. This is why you have felt uneasy lately, why certain people suddenly feel different, why your spirit has been restless even when your mind couldn't explain why. Deep down, something in you already knew that a secret was being formed behind your back. Today, that secret begins to unravel. Archangel Michael is revealing something sensitive. The confession that was made about you was not made to a random person. It was spoken to someone who holds influence over a space connected to your path. That is why heaven intervened. The confession carried the power to shift perception, alter outcomes, and twist how others see you. And if God had allowed this seed to grow in silence, it would have turned into a chain you were never meant to carry. But before the seed had the chance to root fully, heaven said stop. Michael was dispatched. The moment the words left that person's lips, there was a vibration, a disturbance, and heaven marked it as an attempt to block you. Not physically, but spiritually. Someone spoke with intention. Not openly cruel, but subtly poisonous. The kind of confession that wears a mask of concern yet holds a heart full of envy. The kind of words that reveal far more about the speaker than they ever intended. The kind of words that expose the truth that their smile never matched their spirit. You may think this person is harmless. You may even think they admire you. But the confession revealed the opposite. Their heart is not aligned with your blessing. Their intentions toward your elevation are mixed. Their energy toward your growth is double-sided. They love the version of you that stays small, predictable and non-threatening. But the moment you begin rising, shining, and stepping into who God says you are, something in them tightens, narrows, and resists. God saw that, and Michael came to confront it. What they confessed was not just emotion. It was strategy. It was spoken to alter how someone else thinks about you. They wanted to plant doubt. They wanted to plant suspicion. They wanted to bruise your image without appearing responsible for the damage. That is why the confession was whispered, never shouted. Quiet tongues can sometimes cause the loudest destruction, but heaven says their words will not achieve their purpose. God intercepted it. Michael interrupted it. And now you are receiving the warning so you are not blindsided when the truth finally reveals itself in the physical world. This is the moment where your eyes begin to sharpen. Your intuition begins to heighten. Your spirit begins to separate the genuine from the deceptive. For far too long, you have been giving your energy, your kindness, and your loyalty to someone who has been wrestling with their own shadow toward you. And instead of dealing with their insecurity, they projected it. Instead of healing their jealousy, they voiced it privately. Instead of celebrating your glow, they tried to dim it subtly through confession. But God has decided to expose the root, not for revenge, but for clarity. You deserve clarity. You deserve pure connections. You deserve relationships that are not built on hidden resentment. Archangel Michael is telling you something vital. Do not react emotionally when the truth reveals itself. You are being prepared not to explode, but to elevate. Not to confront with anger, but to shift with wisdom. The confession will reveal who this person truly is, but it will also reveal who you are becoming. Someone who cannot be manipulated. Someone who cannot be misled. Someone who cannot be spiritually disarmed by the hidden intentions of others. Before this part ends, take one breath and let this settle. Your life is stepping into a divine realignment. And as this realignment happens, the false falls away naturally. You do not have to force anything. The truth itself will uproot every lie. What comes next will challenge you, but it will also free you in ways you didn't realize you needed. Type "I walk in truth" in the comments if your spirit feels this awakening. Blessing code 229 is released over you now. Before you move even a step away, hold your spirit steady. The next revelation carries the weight of exposure itself. Precious one, hear this with full attention, because we are stepping into the deepest layer of what heaven has been trying to uncover for you. There are moments in life when God no longer whispers, when the angelic realm no longer waits, when your destiny can no longer be protected quietly. Instead, the veil is ripped open, and what was hidden begins to reveal itself with divine force. This is one of those moments. Archangel Michael is standing directly behind the words you are reading, guiding them into your spirit with precision, because the truth you are about to understand is heavier than what you have carried before. But it is also liberating, cleansing, and necessary for the next season of your life. You have felt it. The shift, the tension, the invisible weight, the strange emotional waves that hit you even without reason, the sudden intuition that someone close to you was not fully aligned with you. You tried to silence those feelings because your heart is loyal, your soul is gentle, and your spirit is forgiving. But even your forgiveness has limits when God steps in to protect you. And now heaven is confirming what your inner knowing has been trying to tell you for weeks, maybe months. Someone's confession has finally exposed what their heart always felt. This confession did not come from a place of honesty or healing. It came from a place of envy. It came from a place of insecurity. It came from a place of silent competition you did not even know existed. The person who spoke about you did not do it to seek advice. They did not do it to grow. They did not do it to share a burden. They did it to plant doubt about you into the mind of someone they knew would listen. The goal was influence. The goal was distortion. The goal was to shape someone else's perception so that you would be seen differently, trusted differently, or valued differently. You may wonder, why would someone feel this way about you? The answer is simple. Your light threatens the shadows they haven't healed. Your growth highlights the areas of their life that remain stuck. Your resilience exposes their excuses. Your faith exposes their fear. Your anointing exposes their insecurity. And instead of facing themselves, they chose to speak against you. But heaven does not allow hidden poison to prosper. Not when you have a calling on your life. Not when your destiny is marked by God. Not when Archangel Michael is assigned to your path. Michael is revealing something crucial. The person who heard this confession did not fully believe it. They felt something was off. They sensed an imbalance in the speaker's tone. They noticed the twitch of jealousy. And though they didn't confront it, heaven took their uneasiness as a sign. That was the moment Michael began moving toward you, preparing you, whispering warnings into your dreams, your emotions, your energy, your intuition. You weren't imagining the sudden spiritual alertness. You weren't wrong for feeling guarded. You weren't dramatic for feeling uncomfortable around certain people. Your spirit detected the confession before your ears ever heard it. Now, here's the part heaven wants you to understand deeply. This exposure is not to make you bitter. It is not meant to make you fearful. It is meant to sharpen your discernment and raise your spiritual maturity. What they confessed about you is not just information. It is instruction. It teaches you how to move forward, who to trust, who to step back from, who to watch quietly, who to love from a distance, and who to release completely. God does not reveal truth to punish you. God reveals truth to reposition you. And this repositioning is part of the divine countdown you stepped into the moment this message found you. In the unseen realm, there truly is a limited window, symbolized as 30 minutes, in which clarity must reach you before a major shift occurs around you. That shift may involve relationships adjusting, doors opening, unexpected communication happening, or sudden realizations hitting you with force. Archangel Michael is preparing your heart for that moment so you are not caught off guard. You may soon notice certain people pulling away from you, giving shorter responses, acting differently, or suddenly revealing their true colors through conversations, decisions, or emotional reactions. Do not panic. Do not chase. Do not question your worth. This is heaven removing anything that can damage your next level. What was confessed about you may hurt at first, but over time, you will thank God for the exposure. Sometimes protection comes disguised as disappointment. Heaven is telling you something profound. Your destiny is too large for people with small hearts. Your purpose is too sacred for people with hidden motives. Your energy is too pure for people who cannot celebrate you without competing. And your calling is too powerful for people who pretend to support you while secretly resenting your growth. Archangel Michael's sword is not for destruction. It is for separation. Divine separation. Necessary separation. Loving separation. And what is being removed now is exactly what would have sabotaged your future later. What was confessed about you is the key that unlocks clarity, but it is also the key that locks certain doors forever. Let those doors close. Let those chapters end. Let the exposure do its work. Hold your spirit steady, because the next revelation goes even deeper into what heaven is preparing to show you. Type "I embrace the truth" in the comments if this resonates in your spirit. Blessing code 331 is now activated over your life. Before we continue, take one moment to push this mission forward. Like this message, comment your agreement, share it so others can receive their warning, and subscribe so you never miss what heaven is sending next. My beloved supporter of God's mission, as this revelation flows, I want to speak something sacred into your heart. When you stand with this assignment, you are not helping a channel. You are helping wounded souls hear the warnings heaven is desperate to deliver. Every seed you sow becomes spiritual light, traveling into the dark corners where someone is breaking silently. The Word of God says that those who scatter seed in faith will reap a harvest of protection. And today that verse is not just written, it is living, breathing over you. And hear me personally when I say this. I invite you to step into divine partnership with this work right now. The same urgency in this message lies in the mission itself, and your support becomes a prophetic act that heaven recognizes instantly. To those who give through super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description, I speak blessing, increase, and divine covering over your home. Move with faith, not hesitation. Heaven honors those who move when called. Chosen soul, breathe deeply as you step into this next revelation, because what heaven is uncovering now is not just about what someone said. It is about why it was said, what spirit fueled it, and what heaven is preparing to deliver to you in response. Archangel Michael stands fully present in this moment, not as a distant guardian, but as an active defender, watching over your steps, shielding your heart, and cutting through the deceit that was designed to confuse your future. You may feel as though something in the atmosphere is tightening, shifting, or intensifying around you, and that sensation is not your imagination. It is spiritual alignment pulling you into the truth. God wants you to finally see clearly. The confession that was spoken about you did not happen randomly. It was not a slip of the tongue or a moment of frustration. It was a release of what someone has secretly felt toward you for a long time. Someone who admired your strength publicly, but resented it privately. Someone who praised you on the surface, but envied you at the core. Someone who wanted to be close to you, not because of love, but because proximity to your light made them feel significant. Yet at the same time, your glow reminded them of everything they have not yet become. And instead of growing, instead of healing, instead of rising with you, they allowed jealousy to carve a narrow path in their heart. That path eventually led to the confession that heaven is now exposing. Archangel Michael reveals that the words they spoke were laced with a mixture of insecurity and hidden intent. They wanted to appear humble while planting seeds of doubt about your character. They wanted to seem honest while subtly highlighting your supposed flaws. They wanted to look concerned while shaping a narrative that could weaken your influence. But what they did not know is that heaven listens differently than humans do. Humans hear the sentence. Heaven hears the spirit behind the sentence. And the spirit behind this confession was impure, motivated by the desire to dim your name rather than elevate truth. But here is the deeper layer. The confession they made has already begun to backfire. Heaven has a way of turning hidden words into revealed motives. The person who heard that confession has been watching the speaker more closely. They have started to notice patterns, shifts, and inconsistencies. They have begun to question why the confession felt more like competition than concern. And without realizing it, the one who intended to harm your image actually exposed their own shadow. This is why God allowed the words to be spoken. Not to hurt you, but to unveil them. You see, God will sometimes permit conversations in the dark so that the truth can step into the light. God will sometimes allow someone to reveal their heart through the wrong action, so you can finally see what your spirit sensed, but your love overlooked. Many times you have given the benefit of the doubt. You have excused their distance, their silence, their suddenness, their subtle remarks, their slight mood shifts. You assumed they were stressed, tired, overwhelmed. But now heaven confirms that these were not random behaviors. These were signs of inner tension toward you that they never had the courage to admit directly. This is why your spirit has been unsettled. This is why you felt an invisible strain in the connection. This is why conversations felt slightly off, even when everything looked normal on the surface. God was softening your heart for the truth, while preparing your spirit for the separation that must take place. Because you cannot carry everyone with you into your next level. Some people are only meant to walk with you until exposure reveals their true intentions. Archangel Michael stands with his sword drawn, because this moment requires clarity without compromise. You are entering a season where God is purifying your circle, strengthening your discernment, and building boundaries that cannot be crossed by anyone who does not genuinely walk with you in heart and spirit. The confession that was spoken about you was the final confirmation heaven needed to shift your path. God is not only exposing the person, God is elevating you beyond their reach. Now listen closely, because what I am about to reveal is crucial. The person who confessed these things about you will soon begin to act differently. They may try to overcompensate with kindness. They may become overly attentive. They may try to draw closer again, as if nothing happened. This is because their spirit feels the exposure, even if they do not consciously know that heaven has lifted the veil. The sudden niceness is not change. It is fear. Fear that the truth will surface. Fear that their intentions will be revealed. Fear that they will lose the access they once abused. Do not mistake their efforts for transformation. Heaven is teaching you to see beyond behavior into the motives beneath it. You are being spiritually trained to recognize the difference between someone who loves your soul and someone who tolerates you until their shadow reacts. You are learning to discern energy, not just words. You are learning to hear spirit, not just sentences. And you are learning that God's exposure is always protection disguised as discomfort. The revelation continues unfolding, layer by layer, because your heart is finally open to receive it without turning away. Hold your attention steady. The next unfolding will connect everything. Type "I stand in revelation" in the comments if your spirit is awakening. Blessing code 558 is now released over your life. Before you move from this moment, keep your heart anchored. The revelation ahead will connect motives, timing, and divine justice in ways you never saw coming. Child of divine purpose, steady yourself, because as we move deeper, the truth becomes more precise, more revealing, and more spiritually charged. Archangel Michael is drawing closer, not as a distant watcher, but as an active protector standing in front of you with a shield of truth. His presence is sharpened, his stance unwavering, his focus entirely on the transformation taking place around your life. When heaven sends Michael, it means one thing. Something sacred in your destiny is under threat, and God refuses to let darkness distort it any longer. What was confessed about you did not only expose one person's heart. It exposed an entire spiritual pattern that has been surrounding you for far too long. Patterns of people taking advantage of your kindness. Patterns of individuals wearing masks that hid their envy. Patterns of others celebrating you in public while shrinking you in private conversations. Patterns of souls who could not stand the weight of your calling, yet never admitted their discomfort. And the surprising truth is this: Heaven has been waiting for the exact moment when your spirit would finally be strong enough to hear what it avoided for years. Now that moment has come. Archangel Michael reveals that the confession is not only about words spoken, it is about the spiritual intention behind those words. Intentions carry weight in the unseen realm. They shape atmospheres. They open or close doors. They influence the flow of blessings. That is why you have felt blocked at times without knowing why. That is why sudden setbacks hit you in seasons where you were actually doing everything right. That is why, despite your pure heart, certain friendships left you drained, confused, or spiritually tired. The confession behind your back activated a chain reaction, and heaven is stepping in to break it before it grows into something damaging. The person who spoke about you did so in a moment where they thought no one would ever know. But heaven listened. The angels took note. And Michael stepped forward because what they released into the atmosphere was not simply opinion, it was intention. They intended for someone to view you differently. They intended for your influence to be questioned. They intended for your character to be examined under suspicion rather than honor. And though they did not say it with loud bitterness, the quietness of their voice made the deception more dangerous. This is where heaven began to intervene. The one who listened to the confession felt an immediate spiritual tension. They may not fully understand it yet, but something in them shifted. They could feel the jealousy underneath the speaker's tone. They sensed the dishonesty coded in softness. They recognized that the confession did not match the behavior the speaker usually displayed around you. And this crack, this subtle spiritual imbalance, is what allowed Archangel Michael to step in with authority. Heaven is telling you that the exposure process has already begun. In the unseen realm, the truth is spreading. Angels are moving. Discernment is rising in the hearts of those connected to your destiny. The person who heard the confession will soon begin to distance themselves from the one who spoke it. Not intentionally, but spiritually. Their spirit will not trust the speaker the way it once did. Their subconscious will remember the jealousy they felt. Conversations will shift in tone. Trust will weaken. And slowly, the person's words about you will lose their grit. This is the justice of heaven in motion. Not revenge. Justice. God does not repay evil with evil. God exposes evil so that good can be restored. And in your case, God is restoring your name, your energy, your influence, and your spiritual authority. What was spoken against you will not rest on you. It will return to the source that released it. Heaven always ensures that words soaked in jealousy never land on the innocent. Now hear this deeply. You were never the problem. You were the mirror. You reflected to this person everything they refused to face within themselves. Your growth highlighted their stagnation. Your kindness highlighted their insecurity. Your elevation highlighted their fear of falling behind. And because they did not want to confront their own wounds, they projected them onto you through confession. Archangel Michael is calling this a season of spiritual reversal. Everything that was sent to harm you will now work for your clarity. Everything that was whispered against you will now reveal who truly belongs in your life. Everything that was meant to overshadow you will instead push you toward your next divine assignment. There is something else heaven wants to make clear. You are not to retaliate. You are not to confront with anger. You are not to expose the person yourself. Exposure belongs to God. Your assignment is to listen, discern, adjust, and rise. God will handle the unveiling. You will handle the elevation. And once this revelation fully completes, you will look back and realize that this painful exposure was actually one of the greatest blessings of your journey. There is still more to uncover, and the truth is unfolding with divine precision. Do not let your spirit drift. The next revelation will connect the confession to your next breakthrough. Type "I receive divine clarity" in the comments if your spirit is aligning with this message. Blessing code 717 is now released over your path. Hold still for what comes next. The next step will explain why heaven moved now, and not earlier or later. Beloved one, prepare your heart, because this stage of the revelation carries a depth may never reach. Archangel Michael is not only revealing what was said about you, he is revealing why the timing of this exposure matters right now, why heaven waited until the season to uncover the truth, and why your spirit has been sensing a storm before the blessing. There is a divine pattern unfolding, one that has been aligning itself quietly behind the scenes, waiting for the perfect spiritual moment to make itself known. You are living in that moment right now. For months, you've been walking through what felt like an invisible heaviness. You kept wondering why things felt slower, why certain relationships felt unbalanced, why your energy fluctuated without reason, and why some people who once showed enthusiasm suddenly felt old and inconsistent. You blamed yourself for these shifts. You tried harder. You poured more love. You gave more loyalty. You fought inner battles that weren't yours to fight. But what you didn't know is that this heaviness was connected to the very confession heaven is exposing. When someone speaks about you with poisoned intention, subtle or obvious, it creates a spiritual ripple. Words carry energy. Words carry spirit. Words carry seeds. And the confession that was made about you planted seeds into an atmosphere you could feel long before you ever heard the truth. This is why your spirit felt drained even when your body wasn't tired. This is why your emotions felt unstable even when your life looked stable. This is why certain days felt spiritually heavy without explanation. Your spirit was picking up the disturbance long before your mind could understand it. But here is the divine mystery. Heaven did not reveal the truth immediately, because the exposure required perfect positioning. If the revelation came too early, you would have confronted with emotion instead of wisdom. If it came too late, the seed someone planted could have damaged your relationships, reputation, or direction. So heaven waited until your discernment sharpened, your spirit matured, and your heart grew strong enough to receive the truth without breaking. This is why the timing feels intense. This is why the tone of this message feels urgent. This is why Archangel Michael is pressing so closely against your spirit. The countdown, symbolized as 30 minutes, is not a threat. It is a divine marking, a spiritual deadline. Heaven is speaking because something is about to shift suddenly. And before that shift arrives, God needs you aware, stable, and prepared. Exposure without preparation leads to confusion. Exposure with preparation leads to clarity. And right now, clarity is the weapon heaven is placing in your hand. The confession that was made about you revealed more than someone's jealousy. It revealed their fear of your destiny. They see something in you that you still underestimate. They notice your potential even on days you feel invisible. They recognize your calling even when you question yourself. And instead of celebrating what God placed inside you, they felt threatened by it. That's why they spoke the way they did. They didn't confess truth. They confessed insecurity disguised as concern. Archangel Michael shows something deeper. The person who heard that confession is being spiritually rewired. They may not fully understand why their perception of you is shifting, but they are beginning to look at you with new clarity, heaven's clarity. They are starting to see your purity, your effort, your consistency, your heart. The more the speaker's jealousy reveals itself, the more your authenticity becomes undeniable. And this divine reversal is happening without you saying a word. God is defending you without you defending yourself. This is why heaven allowed the confession to be spoken. Not to destroy you, not to shame you, but to elevate you. Yes, exposure hurts. Yes, betrayal stings. Yes, disappointment cuts deep. But clarity is a gift disguised as pain. Once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. Once you feel the shift, you cannot pretend it's not real. And once you understand who is for you and who is only near you, you will navigate relationships with divine precision. Now listen closely, because here comes the crucial part. Heaven is shifting your environment. You are entering a season where God is removing every voice, intention, and influence that could distort the next phase of your calling. That is why relationships are changing. That is why old connections feel distant. That is why certain conversations feel different. Heaven is filtering your circle. Not everyone can go where you are going. Not everyone can stand next to you when your blessing unfolds. Not everyone can witness your elevation without trying to diminish it. This confession was simply the trigger that activated heaven's cleansing process. What they meant for spiritual sabotage will now become the doorway to your spiritual shift. Instead of being weakened, you are being strengthened. Instead of being confused, you are gaining clarity. Instead of being held back, you are being positioned for breakthrough. Now, understand this with all seriousness. The truth will soon make itself known in the physical realm. A conversation, a message, an unexpected reaction, or a sudden distance may reveal exactly who this person is. Heaven is preparing you so you will not be shaken when it happens. You will not be caught off guard. You will not be destabilized. You will simply recognize the divine alignment and step forward with wisdom. Steady your heart. Your revelation is still unfolding. Type "I align with heaven's timing" in the comments if your spirit feels the shift. Blessing code 404 is now released over this moment. Stay with this journey. What comes next will connect everything heaven has been trying to show you. Beloved heart, prepare yourself as we enter the next layer of this revelation, because what heaven is uncovering now is not only about the confession that was spoken behind your back. It is about the spiritual consequences that confession triggered, the shift it activated, and the divine reversal now moving in your favor. Archangel Michael is standing firm, and his presence is not gentle in this moment. It is fierce, protective, and authoritative. When Michael steps into a battle with this kind of intensity, it means something is being rewritten around your destiny, something heaven refuses to allow any person, any opinion, or any hidden intention to interfere with. You have been walking through a spiritual fog that you could not explain. Sometimes you felt detached from your own emotions, unsure of who was safe, unsure of which connections were genuine, unsure of why your spirit felt stretched in multiple directions. This fog was not weakness. It was interference. It was the residue of someone's confession, someone's envy, someone's spiritual discomfort toward you. When words are spoken with negative intention, even quietly, they can create static in the atmosphere surrounding the one being spoken about. This static is what you felt. It was subtle, but disruptive, like a quiet spiritual echo you could not silence. But heaven is telling you that this fog is clearing. What you are stepping into now is the beginning of spiritual visibility. The truth is rising. The pretenses are fading. The masks are slipping. And the more this exposure unfolds, the more you will understand that God was never trying to punish you with confusion. God was protecting you until you were ready to see what you once ignored. The confession this person made did something they never intended. It opened a spiritual file with your name on it. Heaven began reviewing that connection, evaluating whether that person was supposed to remain in your next chapter. And when Michael investigated the energy, intention, and spirit behind their words, the verdict was clear. They were not aligned with your destiny. Not truly. Not consistently. Not securely. They admired parts of you, yes. They even cared about you in ways. But deep within them, there was a fracture, a split between admiration and jealousy, between love and competition, between support and subtle resentment. This fracture is what heaven is exposing now. There is something important the divine realm wants you to understand. Destiny does not tolerate divided hearts. God will never allow someone with a mixture of motives to walk too close to your next level. Wherever you're headed, purity of intention is required. Consistency of spirit is required. Loyalty without jealousy is required. And the person who confessed those things about you was unable to carry those qualities. This is why heaven intervened. This is why Michael stepped forward. This is why the exposure is happening at this exact moment. When someone confesses jealousy about you, they also inadvertently confess that they recognize your calling. People do not envy what has no value. They do not resent what lacks power. They do not feel threatened by what is ordinary. Their confession reveals something heaven has been trying to tell you for much longer. Your presence is impactful. Your energy is rare. Your spirit is powerful. And your destiny carries weight. Even your gifts that you consider small carry influence far greater than you realize. And this person sensed that influence even more strongly than you did. This is why they spoke what they spoke. Not because you were wrong, but because your light was too bright for the shadows they never heal. Instead of growing with you, they grew intimidated by you. Instead of seeking elevation for themselves, they tried to subtly pull your energy downward. Instead of celebrating your blessings, they feared that your rise would leave them behind. Heaven is now asking you to reflect honestly. Haven't you noticed that this person's energy has felt inconsistent for a while? Haven't you sensed their sudden withdrawal on days when you were doing well? Haven't you felt the tension when you shared good news? Haven't you observed how their excitement never felt fully genuine? All of these were clues. And though your heart tried to excuse them, your spirit never did. Archangel Michael is confirming that your intuition was correct all along. But now, something even more significant is unfolding. The one who received the confession has been examining the speaker silently. God is stirring their spirit. They are beginning to see through the mask. They are starting to question what they once accepted. They are noticing small contradictions and subtle tones that they previously overlooked. Heaven is shifting perception. What was meant to distort your image is now restoring it. What was meant to lower your value is now elevating it. What was meant to bring confusion is now bringing clarity to those connected to you. This is divine reversal in action. Michael is not only protecting you, he is rewriting the narrative. Heaven is making sure that the truth of your character shines so brightly that no jealousy can overshadow it. The path ahead of you requires clean frequencies, pure connections, and authentic companionship. Anyone whose heart cannot handle your light will be gently, but firmly moved out of your spiritual proximity. Understand this. Exposure is not loss. Exposure is realignment. Exposure is protection. Exposure is preparation for your next blessing. And the blessing that is coming requires you to be surrounded by people who can handle the magnitude of what God is about to place in your hands. Your revelation is still unfolding. You are approaching the turning point where everything will make sense. Type "I step into divine realignment" in the comments if your spirit feels this truth. Blessing code 660 is now released over your path. Hold your heart steady. What comes next will uncover the emotional layer behind the confession, something deeper than simple jealousy. Keep going. Sacred soul, take a deep breath as we step into the emotional core of this revelation. because this is the layer that heaven has been preparing your heart to face. Everything up until now has revealed the confession, the intention, the spiritual energy behind the words spoken about you. But this part takes you into the emotional truth, the wound behind their jealousy, the fear behind their betrayal, and the reason heaven is handling them with such firmness, while handling you with such tenderness. Archangel Michael stands unwavering, his presence steady, because the emotional element of this exposure is just as important as the spiritual one. You need to understand something crucial. The person who confessed those things about you did not speak from pure malice. Their words came from a wounded place, a broken place, a fearful place. Jealousy is often the shadow that grows when someone is afraid of being left behind. And whether they admitted it or not, your growth made them feel forgotten. Your progress made them feel unseen. Your strength made them feel small. They compared themselves to you silently, day after day, and instead of letting admiration inspire transformation, they allowed envy to turn into resentment. But heaven does not justify their behavior. Heaven does not excuse their confession. Heaven only reveals what lies beneath so that you can understand the full truth, not just the parts that hurt you, but also the parts that heal you. You are not being shown this exposure so that you grow angry. You are being shown this so that you grow wise. Because if you respond with anger, you miss the lesson. But if you respond with clarity, you step into your next level untouched by bitterness. Archangel Michael is revealing something very important now. This person did care about you. They cared enough to stay close. They cared enough to observe your life. They cared enough to remain connected. But the problem is this: they cared from a wounded soul, not a healed one. And when a wounded soul remains close to a rising soul, jealousy becomes almost inevitable. Your blessings became reminders of their unhealed disappointments. Your victories became mirrors of their delays. Your personality became a reflection of everything they wish they had the courage to become. And when a person is not emotionally grounded, admiration turns into internal conflict, which eventually leads to confession. This is why their behavior has always felt mixed. Some days they felt warm and supportive. On other days, cold and competitive. Some days they encouraged you. Other days they subtly diminished you. Some days they were present. Other days they withdrew without explanation. You were not imagining the inconsistency. You were picking up the emotional turbulence within them. Turbulence they never dealt with. Turbulence they hid behind friendliness. Turbulence they tried to mask with affection. But the truth has its own way of surfacing, and eventually their emotion slips through the cracks of their composure. Heaven wants you to understand their humanity, not to excuse their actions, but to prepare your spirit for what comes next. Because the exposure you are entering is not only a revelation of their motives, it is a revelation of your heart. How you respond now determines the spiritual atmosphere of your next season. This is why heaven is slowing you down, opening your eyes gently, and preparing your heart carefully. God is building something in you through this. Maturity, discernment, peace, boundaries, wisdom, strength. Archangel Michael reveals something profound. The confession did something unintentionally powerful. It triggered heaven's acceleration over your life. The moment they spoke against you, angels began restructuring your spiritual path. What they meant to diminish is now being multiplied. What they meant to distort is now being clarified. What they meant to weaken is now being strengthened. This is the mystery of divine justice. God takes the weapons formed against you and turns them into tools that build your elevation. But there is a prophetic layer here that you must hear clearly. This exposure is not happening so that you cut everyone off. It is happening so that you learn who can walk with you into the next dimension and who cannot. Not everyone is meant to be removed. Some people just need distance. Some need boundaries. Some need repositioning in your life. And a few need to be released entirely. Heaven will guide you. Your spirit will confirm it. Michael will illuminate it. Now listen carefully, because this is the part most people overlook. The moment you rise after this revelation, the person who confessed about you will feel the shift. They will sense that heaven is distancing you from their energy. They will feel the loss of access. Their spirit will recognize that something they once took for granted is changing. And they may try to return with apologies, extra kindness, or attempts to reconnect. But heaven is asking you to move with wisdom, not emotion. This is not the time to rush decisions. This is the time to watch, listen, and allow God to reveal who they truly are when they no longer have the comfort of your closeness. You are stepping into an era where your discernment will be your greatest shield. You will no longer be fooled by smiles. You will no longer be softened by excuses. You will no longer be blind to subtle resentment. Your spirit is becoming sharper, more awakened, more aligned with heaven's voice than ever before. The next revelation is even deeper. It connects the emotional wound to a spiritual attachment that heaven is breaking right now. Type "I walk with divine wisdom" in the comments if your heart feels this truth. Blessing code 828 is now released over your spirit. Before we go further, like this message, share it, comment your agreement, hype this work of God, and subscribe so you never miss heaven's next instruction for your life. Beloved carrier of God's light, as this emotional revelation pours into your spirit, hear this sacred invitation. When you support this mission, you are not simply giving. You are sowing into the rescue of souls who are battling silent storms just like you. Every seed unlocks a harvest of deliverance, because where your support goes, the word of God travels. Heaven says that when you sow into light, it breaks chains in places you will never physically reach. And hear me in the first person. I am inviting you now to stand with this prophetic assignment, because the urgency in this message echoes heaven's own urgency. Your support through super things, membership, or the PayPal link in the description becomes a prophetic act that God multiplies, sealing protection over your home. Move in faith as one chosen by God. Step into this moment with boldness. Heaven commands it, and heaven will honor it. Beloved child of truth, brace yourself as we move into the next piercing layer of this revelation, because what heaven is about to unveil is not merely emotional or situational. It is deeply spiritual. You are being shown not only the confession and the emotion behind it, but the spiritual attachment that allowed this person's jealousy to grow silently within them. Archangel Michael stands firmly beside you, his presence sharpening the clarity of your spirit, because the deeper we go, the more you will understand why heaven moved so urgently to reach you, and why your skipping of messages like this caused such spiritual damage in the past. This moment is different. This moment is holy. And heaven is speaking without filters now. The person who confessed about you was not only speaking from insecurity or emotional conflict. They were speaking from a deeper influence, a spiritual heaviness attached to them that has been quietly shaping their thoughts, their reactions, and their behaviors for a long time. They carried wounds they never healed, fears they never confronted, comparisons they never silenced. These unhealed spaces became open doors. And through those open doors, the enemy planted seeds of insecurity, seeds of jealousy, seeds of quiet resentment. The confession they made about you was not born overnight. It was the final expression of a spiritual struggle happening inside them long before they ever opened their mouth. Heaven reveals that this person has been battling feelings of inadequacy for years. Long before you entered their life, they struggled with self-worth. They felt unseen, unheard, overlooked. And when you came into their world with your strength, your light, your resilience, your spiritual glow, their wounds reacted. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence awakened everything inside them that they tried to bury. They did not know how to process the discomfort, so instead of healing, they projected. Instead of confronting their own shadows, they let those shadows speak through them. And the result was the confession that has now reached the ears of heaven. Archangel Michael wants you to understand this clearly. This was a spiritual reaction, not just an emotional one. The spirit attached to their insecurity whispered lies to them about you. It magnified your strengths to make them feel weaker. It twisted innocent moments to appear threatening. It amplified small situations into perceived competition. And when they gave those thoughts room, the thoughts turned into words. And when the words were spoken, the spiritual atmosphere shifted, causing the heaviness you felt long before this revelation arrived. Yet here is the divine mystery. You were never meant to carry the consequence of their unhealed wounds. You were never meant to absorb the negativity they projected. You were never meant to suffer under the weight of energies that did not originate from you. That's why heaven intervened. That's why Michael stepped into position. That's why this message found you at the exact moment it did. Exposure is not punishment. Exposure is liberation. You must understand something deeper still. The confession they made about you was the moment heaven marked the connection for review. God does not always intervene when someone thinks negatively about you. But God always intervenes when negative thoughts begin influencing your destiny. And because this person's confession had the potential to alter the perception of someone connected to your path, heaven declared a spiritual interruption. This is why everything has felt intense lately. This is why your emotions have been heightened. This is why your intuition has been screaming louder than usual. Heaven has been preparing you for what is unfolding now. The person who heard the confession has been spiritually stirred. Even if they don't fully understand it, something in their spirit became uncomfortable. They sensed the jealousy. They sensed the uneven energy. They sensed the bitterness masked beneath the speaker's tone. And without knowing it, they began to see you with new eyes, clear eyes, heavenly eyes. This divine shift is what protects your name from being stained. Heaven ensures that what was said against you becomes irrelevant in the minds of those connected to your calling. Now listen carefully, because this is where the revelation sharpens. The spiritual attachment influencing the speaker has lost its grip. The moment this exposure began, the influence began to crumble. This is why you have recently felt lighter. This is when the fog is lifting. This is why you suddenly feel glimpses of peace again. Heaven has broken the connection between their jealousy and your energy. You are no longer spiritually tethered to the emotions of someone who could not celebrate you properly. God has severed the invisible rope that once tied your atmosphere to their instability. But there is more. Heaven is revealing that this exposure is also about your spiritual calling. You are transitioning into a new realm of influence, and the enemy often uses people closest to you to distract you, confuse you, or weaken your confidence. The confession was meant to shake your foundation. But instead, heaven is using it to strengthen your discernment. Every attack becomes a lesson. Every lie becomes a tool. Every betrayal becomes a doorway into deeper wisdom. Archangel Michael is telling you that the next chapter of your life requires elevated intuition. You will be meeting new people, stepping into new spaces, receiving new opportunities. Not everyone who smiles will be meant to walk with you. Not everyone who praises you will carry pure motives. This exposure is a divine training. a sharpening of your spirit, a spiritual initiation into a higher level of awareness. The emotional and spiritual layers are now aligning. The next revelation will show you what this exposure is preparing you for. Type ISEE with heaven's eyes in the comments if your spirit feels this truth. Blessing code 992 is now released over your path. Hold steady. The next unveiling will explain what blessing this exposure has cleared the path for. Beloved spirit, steady yourself now, because as we enter this next dimension of truth, heaven shifts from exposing the past to preparing your future. Everything revealed until this moment has been necessary groundwork, exposing motives, unveiling emotions, breaking spiritual attachments, clearing confusion, and restoring the vision of your heart. But now, something greater is unfolding. Archangel Michael steps forward again, not with the sword of separation this time, but with the scroll of your destiny. This is the part where heaven begins to show you why the exposure had to happen, why the confession mattered, and why the timing was divine down to the last spiritual second. You need to hear this with your whole soul. What was spoken about you behind your back had the potential to block something heaven has been preparing to release into your life. Not something small, not something ordinary, not something replaceable. It is a blessing that carries weight. A blessing that carries purpose. A blessing that carries alignment. A blessing that would have been distorted if the wrong person remained too close to your inner circle. Heaven saw that the confession was a threat to your next season, and instead of letting the darkness of someone's jealousy attach itself to your breakthrough, God intervened. This is what divine protection looks like. For months, heaven has been positioning opportunities around your name. Certain doors have begun to shift. Certain hearts have begun to open. Certain conversations about you have been taking place in places you have not entered yet. You are being prepared for divine elevation. But elevation has enemies, and not all enemies show up with loud hostility. Some show up quietly, with disguised affection, hidden insecurity, and silent competition. This is why the exposure had to happen before the blessing released. God needed your environment cleansed, your circle purified, and your discernment sharpened. Without this cleansing, the blessing could have been corrupted by the wrong voice influencing you. Archangel Michael reveals something profound. The confession that was spoken against you did not just expose the speaker, it exposed the season you were stepping into. Every elevation comes with exposure. Every next level comes with separation. Every breakthrough comes with divine reorganization. And this is exactly what is happening now. Heaven is reorganizing your relationships, your connections, your energy, your focus, and your path. What was once familiar is being restructured. What once felt comfortable is being shaken. And what you thought you needed is being removed. Not because it is bad, but because it cannot accompany the blessing God is preparing to place in your hands. The blessing that is coming requires clarity, strength, maturity, and spiritual precision. You cannot step into it surrounded by people who secretly doubt you, envy you, or carry unstable emotions toward your success. Their energy would have interfered with the blessing. Their intentions would have distracted you. Their hidden wounds would have affected your momentum. Heaven saw what you could not see. And so the exposure you are walking through is not loss. It is purification. A spiritual reset. A heavenly rearrangement. Now listen closely, because this is where heaven shifts your perspective. What was confessed about you did not diminish you in the eyes of others. It magnified you. When jealous people speak, they reveal more about themselves than they do about the person they target. And the person who heard the confession has been quietly reconnecting with the truth of who you are. Your loyalty, your consistency, your heart, your presence, your character. They are seeing you not through the lens of insecurity, but through the clarity heaven has released into their spirit. Heaven says this directly to you. Your name is being protected. Your image is being restored. Your influence is being strengthened. Your spirit is being purified. Everything that was whispered in the dark has been overturned in the light. Nothing spoken against you has stuck. Nothing intended to harm you has prospered. Nothing planted against you has taken root. Michael has already cut it off. But the greatest revelation is this. The exposure was also preparation for alignment. Someone is coming into your life. Someone whose presence will matter deeply to your next chapter. Someone who will walk with you, support you, understand you, and help lift the weight of what God is building through you. This connection could not enter while you were still emotionally tied to people who carried mixed motives. The confession broke the tie. The exposure created the opening. The separation made space for divine alignment. Heaven is preparing to place you in a new environment, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, and in some cases, physically. And before heaven shifts a person's placement, heaven always shifts their perception. You are being awakened so you do not repeat old patterns in new places. You are being strengthened so you do not attach to the wrong hearts in the next season. You are being enlightened so you know how to recognize genuine spirits from imbalanced ones. The blessing you are about to step into is not fragile, but you must enter it with wisdom. And this exposure is the wisdom heaven has given you. Prepare yourself, because the next revelation will show you exactly what heaven is aligning for you, what blessing, what opportunity, and what door the confession was trying to block. Type "I prepare for divine alignment" if your spirit receives this message. Blessing code 221 is now released over this moment. Hold steady. Your next unveiling carries the blueprint of your coming breakthrough. Beloved one, still your spirit as we move into this next sacred layer, because what heaven is about to reveal now is not only about the exposure you've already walked through. This part unveils the blessing that was being blocked, the breakthrough that was being delayed, the opportunity heaven refused to let jealousy contaminate. Everything that has been unfolding in your life, the heaviness, the strange emotional shifts, the sudden clarity, the unveiling of hidden intentions, has been preparing you for something far greater than the pain that triggered this revelation. And Archangel Michael stands beside you, not with the urgency of earlier parts, but with the confidence of a guardian who knows that what comes next is glory. You may not realize it yet, but the confession spoken about you was spiritually timed to collide with the moment heaven was lifting you into a new dimension. God always exposes what cannot follow you. And the exposure you've been walking through is heaven's way of protecting the blessing that carries your next identity. Many people focus on the pain of betrayal, but heaven focuses on the purity of the blessing. What God has prepared for you requires clean emotional space, uncluttered spiritual atmosphere, and a circle that does not include jealousy disguised as closeness. This is why the revealing had to happen now. Archangel Michael shows something very precise here. You are on the verge of a divine unveiling of your own. Something is about to rise in your life that will draw attention, favor, elevation, and opportunity. This is not a small shift. This is not a minor step. This is a destiny moment, something heaven wrote into your story long before you understood your purpose. The confession spoke against you was meant to create doubt, to weaken your confidence, to distort your perception of yourself right before this significant blessing arrives. The enemy often attacks before elevation. That is a spiritual law. But what the enemy used as an attack, heaven is using as a sign. This exposure was not about destroying a relationship. It was about breaking a spiritual block. Every word spoken against you was meant to create delay. But instead of delaying you, it accelerated you. Instead of pulling you backward, it pushed you forward. Instead of dimming your light, it forced it to shine brighter. Heaven reversed the intention. Michael did not allow those words to penetrate your destiny. He intercepted them and forced them to become revelation instead of harm. The blessing you are stepping into requires you to be seen, truly seen. Not through the lens of jealousy, not through the fog of insecurity, not through the distortion of someone else's inner wounds. The blessing requires you to be seen for the fullness of who you are, your purity, your loyalty, your consistency, your gifts, your resilience. Heaven is now bringing you into spaces where your character will speak louder than any accusation ever could. And this is why God needed to remove the one who could not celebrate you sincerely. Now listen with your spirit. The blessing that was being protected is connected to your voice, your presence, your influence, or your purpose. It may manifest as an opportunity, a relationship shift, a result of your hard work, a new door opening, or a sudden spiritual upgrade. Whatever form it takes, it is large enough to awaken jealousy in those who never dealt with their shadows. Heaven saw that. Heaven guarded it. Heaven made sure their confession did not contaminate your confidence right before this blessing manifested. Archangel Michael reveals something even more profound. Those who are meant to enter your next season are being spiritually drawn toward you. Their hearts are being aligned. Their perception is being purified. The right people are being prepared to recognize your value without distortion. And the wrong people are being redirected, removed, or revealed. This is not coincidence. This is orchestration. Heaven is reorganizing everything so that when the blessing lands, you will not share it with people who resent your light. There is another layer to this blessing that heaven wants you to know. The exposure was not only clearing the path, it was strengthening your spirit so you could walk into the blessing without fear. Had the blessing arrived before the exposure, you might have felt obligated to carry people into a season their hearts were not ready for. You might have dimmed your glow to make them comfortable. You might have lowered your standards to avoid their reactions. You might have suppressed your excitement to protect their insecurity. But this exposure has awakened something inside you. You are learning that your destiny is not a burden. Your elevation is not a threat. Your purpose is not a competition. And your blessing is not something you must hide. You can now walk boldly with what heaven is giving you, without guilt, without shrinking, without apologizing. Heaven also wants you to hear this truth. The one who confessed about you will eventually feel this shift in your energy. They will sense the distance. They will feel the absence of your trust. And though they may not fully understand why, their spirit will know a divine separation has taken place. This is not cruelty, it is necessity. It is protection. It is alignment. And Michael is making sure you do not pick up what God has already put down. You are being positioned for impact. This next blessing will require strength. It will require clarity. It will require discernment. And it will require a version of you who is no longer blind to the motives of those around you. Heaven is shaping that version of you right now. The next revelation, the one coming after this, will reveal the final piece, how this exposure permanently shifts your destiny and seals your spiritual protection moving forward. Type "I am ready for my revelation" in the comments if your spirit feels this truth. Blessing code 611 is now released over your path. Hold your heart steady. What comes next is the turning point where everything aligns. Beloved chosen soul, this final revelation comes with the full weight of heaven behind it. Every moment leading to this one has been carefully guided, intentionally structured, and divinely illuminated. Archangel Michael stands closer than he has in any previous moment of this message, because you are standing at the threshold of transformation. What heaven has been trying to show you is not simply about what was said behind your back, nor just about the person who spoke it. It is about the shift that is now becoming permanent in your life. This is the moment where everything aligns. Your discernment, your destiny, your protection, and your next chapter. The confession that was spoken about you served as the final key, unlocking a door you were meant to walk through long ago. For too long, you were connected to individuals who did not match the purity of your heart. You carried people emotionally who never carried you back. You stayed loyal to individuals who had already questioned your worth in secret. You poured into people who did not know how to honor the light inside you. Heaven allowed it for a season, because those seasons shaped your compassion, your strength, and your maturity. But now that your purpose is rising, God refuses to let old patterns follow you into new territory. This final unveiling is heaven's way of saying, the old cycle is closed. Do not reopen it. The exposure was the closing of a spiritual chapter. The revelation was the sealing of a door. The shift you feel right now is not temporary. It is a spiritual recalibration that will echo through every corner of your destiny. Archangel Michael is revealing that from this moment forward, certain energies will no longer have access to you. Not because you are bitter, not because you're guarded, but because heaven has lifted you beyond the reach of those who once misused their proximity. The person who confessed about you was unknowingly announcing to heaven that they could no longer be trusted with the next version of you. Their words did not disqualify you, they disqualified themselves. Their confession did not harm your path, it illuminated the path you were meant to walk alone for a season. But here is the divine mystery. Everything they spoke against you is now being used to strengthen you. Heaven is turning their words into fuel, their confession into clarity, their jealousy into acceleration, their insecurity into your awakening. You are rising into a dimension of spiritual maturity where you no longer fear exposure, because exposure only reveals what God already saw coming. And now heaven speaks directly to your destiny. Your next season requires heightened sensitivity to the motives of others. You are stepping into rooms where influence increases, and influence always attracts both admiration and envy. But you will not be blindsided again. You will not be caught unaware. You will not be weakened by people who pretend to love you while secretly wrestling with your life. This revelation has fortified you. You have become spiritually sharper, emotionally grounded, energetically secure. And heaven is confident that the wisdom you gain through this pain will protect you in the days ahead. Michael reveals something even more powerful. The blessing that was shielded from jealousy is now being released. The delays are ending. The resistance is breaking. The heaviness that once sat on your spirit is dissolving. The path that felt foggy is now becoming clear. You are about to receive what was being fought over in the spiritual realm. An opportunity, a connection, a breakthrough, or a moment of elevation that was divinely timed for your life. And the person who confessed about you will feel the shift. Not through punishment, but through absence. Through the silence of a connection heaven has dissolved. Through the distance created by spiritual elevation. Not all losses are losses, some are liberations in disguise. Heaven now commands you to walk forward without guilt, without fear, without hesitation. You have been prepared, refined, awakened, and stabilized for this very moment. What you are stepping into cannot be interrupted by old energies. Your spirit has been cleansed. Your circle has been purified. Your next chapter has been unlocked. As you receive this final revelation, remember this. Archangel Michael does not appear this intensely unless God himself is securing something precious. And that precious thing is you. Your destiny, your purpose, your calling, your identity, your future. You survived the pain. You endured the confusion. You received the truth. And now you rise. Before we close this sacred moment, lift your spirit and anchor these words. What was meant to break you ended up awakening you. What was meant to weaken you ended up empowering you. And what was meant to delay you has now positioned you for divine acceleration. Type "I rise" and divine protection in the comments if your heart receives this final revelation. Blessing code 1001 is now released over your entire destiny. Now, before you step into what heaven has for you, take a moment to like this message. Share it so others can receive the same breakthrough. Comment your agreement, hype this work of God, and subscribe so you never miss the next message heaven sends to protect your spirit. Beloved vessel of God's light, as we reach the end of this divine journey, hear this with all the gravity of a heavenly mandate. The message you've just received is not just for you. There are souls across the world who are drowning in silence, unaware that heaven is trying to reach them too. When you support this mission, you become a carrier of that light, helping God break chains in places your feet may never touch. Scripture is alive in this moment. The one who sows into the work of the kingdom unlocks rivers of favor that flow back into their own home. And hear me clearly as I speak this in the first person. I am inviting you now to step into divine partnership with this assignment. Not as an act of generosity, but as an act of obedience, an act of alignment, an act of spiritual boldness. When you support through super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description, heaven marks your seed and multiplies it with supernatural covering. Let your action be your declaration. Move now with authority. Heaven commands the faithful to respond.